If it's almost sharp, it'll almost cut. And I think a bowl gouge is probably one of the most difficult wood turning tools to sharpen. So let me show you how. I did a recent community poll and to get your feedback on whether I should do a sharpening video, and here's an indication of the response. So it looked like there was a strong interest. Some of you posted some comments, and I hope to try to answer those questions in this video. What bowl gouge grind is the best? I'm sorry, there's no such animal. Everybody's going to have a different opinion, and different grinds will work better with some wood turners and will work better with some profiles. Now, a traditional 45 to 55 degree front bevel angle is very common. So how do we measure? We're measuring this front nose angle. For example, this one is close to 60 degrees with the protractor going down, sitting flat on the flute. Let's start with a traditional grind, which is very similar to the straight across grind on a spindle roughing gouge, which of course is never used on a bowl. Mike Mahoney calls this his bottom feeder. I'd call it my bob gouge, bottom of the bowl gouge. Traditional grind is ground straight across. It's one of the easiest bowl gouges profiles to grind, because basically you're just going to put it on a profile at the appropriate bevel angle, and then you're just going to spin it like this. And there you are. Now, you can create a slight secondary bevel if you like, and I just do that freehand while the wheel is typically slowing down. And there we are. You can replicate that profile by making a little jig similar to this one. This is curved surface. But here's one I got Stuart Batty made for a class I was in almost 15 years ago. And you set it where the tool, that bevel where the tool is going to actually be touching on the wheel. This one's for his 40-40 grind, and then 20 degrees on the other side for setting to sharpen a skew. And it starts to get more complicated when we want a different grind than that traditional grind, maybe one that's more swept back. Maybe we have more than one bowl gouge. So freehand is an option for those. Richard Raffin shows how to do that in a video, and I've got a link in my show notes to that video. When I first started turning, I'd gotten a one-way sharpening system used with my mini lathe, and I learned how to use that Vari-grind, and I used that for about the first year. I had a class with Stuart Batty, and I learned how to freehand sharpen a 40-40 grind in his 2-day class, and it was reinforced a little bit later with a class with his protege Ashley Harwood, who uses the same technique. But even still, after I learned how to do it, for me, I went back to using the Vari-grind because I found it faster to set up, easier to replicate. It took off less steel. It was just easier for me. But your mileage may vary. Certainly, if you learn how to use it freehand, you can save the cost of a jig. However, if you use more steel by doing it freehand, you could pay for this jig in short order with expensive bowl gouges. This is the original Vari-grind. There are knockoffs or similar models by different manufacturers. They've even got one model, a variation of this called a Vari-grind 2, which I don't recommend. I don't like it. It keeps you from accidentally coming off of the wheel, but that solves a problem that most turners don't have, and it has some limitations to using it. A straight edge along the top of your gouge grind is going to be a little more aggressive than one that is slightly convex. There's pros and cons to both of them. Sometimes this is better if you're using it a lot for shear scraping. It just depends. But what you don't want is a dip anywhere along this edge. that's a terrible grind. And so if you're trying to fix a bad grind, and maybe you have a dip here, maybe you have a dip here, or maybe it's a brand new bowl gouge and you're having to create that profile from scratch or fix one of these problems. Let me show you how you go about doing that. So the first step in correcting a problem with a dip, or what they might call a bird's beak, or profiling a brand new one, is shaping that top profile. So we're going to do that freehand. And obviously this wheel is concave, so we've got to move this and run it up and slightly do it this way. And there we are. So you can see by us grounding it flat, we can see the edge of the metal, and that gives us, it shows us exactly where the steel needs to be ground away. And it's just like turning a block of wood. Where does the wood need to come off? And we need to do that also with shaping any wood turning tool that we're grind. If the biggest issue I find with beginning turners is they don't know what the tool tip should look like. So this helps you understand how much more time you might need to spend on one part of the grind to another, depending on how wide that silvery area is. I've got a 1 3/4 inch hole drilled on this side and 2 inch on this side. I don't use this one anymore. It makes no difference whether you extend 1 3/4 inch for the Wolverine Bear grind or 2 inches. The key is always using the same one so you can replicate the grind. The one disadvantage of going a little bit shorter, let me show you. If you use the 2 inch extension, you can always use the V pocket on your Wolverine to set it exactly 2 inches. I've got this set 1 3/4, so it's a bit short. I find this a little bit awkward to use. I just find it easier to use that hole method. You can also buy fancy little metal doodads for 10 or 15 bucks that allow you to set it, but none of them work any better than just drilling a hole in a block of wood. If you're doing an extreme swept back grind, more so than this one, when you swing this all the way around with a little shorter extension, it is easier, if you're not paying attention, to get the side of your Bear grind into the wheel. I don't find that to be an issue. I don't sweep it back that far. I'm careful in what I'm doing, but there is an advantage to having a little longer one in that it reduces your risk of doing that. Now again, the angle is set by moving the arm forward and backwards. Now, what do we accomplish by changing the position of this arm? Well, frankly, the further it goes, the more swept back, the more this thing is going to pivot around and grind off a little more of your side grind. Frankly, I just find it easier for me to use the one setting as recommended by Doug Thompson for both my spindle and all my bowl gouges. Doug Thompson, Thompson Lathe Tools, has a template, a photograph that's to scale. You can actually go to his website and www.thompsonlathetools.com, download this, and when you print it, it'll be to scale. He sets the leg to one size, and he does all of his spindle and bowl gouges at that same angle. So let me show you how that works. Basically, all you've got to do is set this up and match it, and you've got it. Now, what I like to do, there's a couple of options. One, you can take a pencil if you're going to be adjusting this, and you just scribe a pencil line. Here's one where I used in the past. You scribe a pencil line. The other alternative tip that I like to do is actually drill a hole all the way through the leg through this, and then you can just hold it up to the light to make sure that you've got it set properly. The other tip with this is a couple of take a file or if you've got a stone wheel, don't do this on your CBN wheel. Just round the edges over just a little bit, make it a little easier to pivot in the pocket on your arm. The other thing that I do is I put a little larger knob in case you do adjust this from time to time. It's just a whole lot easier to use than the wing nut. If you have an existing bowl gouge and you don't want to have one size fits all, you can also, there's a way you can do make multiple adjustments by experimenting with a front arm, and you can replicate that gouge, exact gouge wing profile. If there's an interest in that, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I can cover that in a future video. I find it handy when I'm sharpening, especially if I'm working with beginners, to always use a felt tip pen on the bevel angle where you can easily see where the steel is being removed. There. You then set your arm out until it matches your desired bevel. In this case, I'm reproducing the angle that I already have, and I lock it a little bit, and then I can just spin the wheel a little bit to see whether I'm getting a uniform a cut, a little bit at the bottom, top, and I am. So now I'm going to, as you can, I don't know if you can see this, let me get a close-up. That angle, I can tell this is exactly the same angle I sharpened it at before, because when I swing it around, I get the same contact with that wing, which is what I want, to be able to reproduce it. So I grab it up here near the top. I don't grab it down to here where I get leverage on it. Hold it up here, and I just gradually bring it around. And I'm trying to bring that outside to that inside profile as I showed in that photograph. I tend to find that it usually works best if I work the wings first on one side, then the other. Check to see if it's coming off. Keep it moving. And then join the front bevel with the side. Still got a little more work to go. Almost there. Typically you have more steel on the tip. Ooh, it's hot. So you have to remove a little more steel on the front. I typically put a small grind away this heel a little bit, this sharp edge, and I do that typically as the wheel is slowing down. And that takes care of it. Now I'm sharpening my 5/8 inch go-to transitional grind. That is, at 5/8, the sweep back is only about 3/4 of an inch. So I mark this. I set the bevel angle to match what I've got, and then I just move the wheel a little bit and then I get that nice even stripe of fresh metal all the way across, showing me I have the angle right. Again, I leave this on that standard 23-degree setting. Again, I don't choke up. I choke up on the handle. I don't put my hand far back here. Keep my other fingers up here on the knob. And I'm just going to get the side first. And the other side. And I've got that. Now I just blend the two together. And there we have it. And it's slightly concave. You could have it flat, but actually it's easier and safer if you have it slightly concave. You definitely don't want to dip down in here because you're not going to get an effective cut. Again, I also have a slight, knock the edge off of it just a little bit. Again, I just kind of do it just a little bit, keep it moving there on just the corner. So I've got this rounded edge, so I'm not going to get that sharp edge burnishing the wood that's going to leave oxidation marks. Once you got your profile set and your tool sharpened for the first time, after that, you're not really grinding the tool, you're dressing the bevel. One of you asked the question about what's the difference between grinding and honing. Well, again, once you've got it ground and you've got that profile set, you're just dressing the bevel. There is an occasion when it's appropriate to tune it up just a little bit with a hone, and I would say that's primarily on your final finishing cut. The other time is when you don't have access to a grinder. Maybe you're off somewhere demonstrating, and you just got an opportunity to just sharpen it a little bit with a few strokes of either diamond or a CBN, cubic boron nitride, which is almost as hard. Otherwise, generally it's just faster and easier to go straight from the your grinder and jig setup and go straight into turning. I hope this has been useful for you. If it has, please leave comments below. If you got any questions about sharpening your tools, leave those in the comments below and I'll try to address them in a future video. Now, sharpen your bowl gouge and get to turning. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.